What's up gamers, Dreamcastguy here, and it's Top 10 Thursday. I bet you're wondering why I'm holding a copy of Super Mario Bros. 3 in my hand, and it comes down to the fact that I rebeat it this weekend, and it absolutely melted my brain because I've realized that this is a game that aged perfectly. It's just as good now as it was all those decades ago when it originally came out. In fact, some of you are probably younger than this game, but it still operates just as good as it did at release. However, that's not always the case. Sometimes there are things that were masterpieces at launch, only to become a little bit rough around the edges as time goes on. So today, I want to take a special look at that. The games that are still fun and interesting, but definitely not as spectacular as they once were. These are my picks of the top 10 good games that aged bad. Number 10. Tomb Raider. During my early days of YouTube, I made it a point to try and study all the different gameplay genres and really see how they came about. And nothing is really more fascinating to me than early 3D platformers, because really nobody knew how to make things control properly, so everything was very experimental. One of the first projects that really got some massive popularity though was Tomb Raider. At this point, Lara Croft is quite famous for just kicking butt, her dual guns, and how much she gets stuff done. But I think that now, looking back, this game is not as shiny and amazing as it once was. For the most part, I have to say that while the graphics aren't fantastic, the biggest issue is the controls themselves. Just trying to jump and climb is a ridiculous chore that is incredibly clunky. Number 9. Jade Empire. The development studio BioWare has grown very large over the course of the last couple decades from their really interesting, deep RPGs. They've managed to craft their own style of choice-focused narratives. Things like Knights of the Old Republic and Baldur's Gate have made them a lot of money, but one that's sort of been forgotten and left behind was Jade Empire. Going back through it, it's still quite fun, but the problem is you begin to see that this is a game that is very easy to break. It's essentially an action RPG focused around kung fu and spiritual magics, and while that is cool, it's super easy to just basically create a Superman character right at the start and basically break the entire game instantly. It's a little bit disappointing to see a game that was once so legendary kind of revealing all the cracks in its veneer. Number 8. Grand Theft Auto 3. Now just a second here, before you rush down to the comment section and tell me that I'm a big stupid face for putting this on the list, I want to point out that I'm not saying that this game is trash. In fact, quite the opposite. Grand Theft Auto 3 is still really great. In fact, I'd say that it's one of the best early PS2 games. The problem is that it's definitely just not as good as it once was. Certain aspects of this did age remarkably well, like the general writing, the goofy characters, and the driving itself. Being able to just get around in this place is great. The city still seems so alive, but trying to do the actual missions is such a testament to torture. The freaking lock-on system is awful and something that was only invented to work on early PS2, and now experiencing it in the modern day is absolutely awful. Number 7. Star Fox. This series has taken many different forms over the course of Nintendo's life, from its basic origins as a plane shooting game to its more action-adventure roots, but I always think that this first one is probably the one that's going to go down in history because it tried to be the most forward. It really tried to be ahead of its time, and while at the moment it really was groundbreaking, seeing it now is really not the same. The frame rate continues to crash, the controls and general flight are not super good, and the biggest problem is that the graphics do honestly just suck. I mean, it's one of those things where I can appreciate what it is, but now it's just something where there are so many better sequels that I'd rather be playing than the original Star Fox. Number 6. Resistance: Fall of Man. The dawn of the PS3 was a really rocky time for Sony because they needed eyes on their product. Their console was not doing good out the gate, so they decided to really double down and spread out to come up with some games that were very different and still fun. At the time, Resistance: Fall of Man found a perfect audience. People who wanted a hardcore shooter that also had some weirdness to it, and it was good during its era, but now going back through it, it feels really bizarre. There's so many design choices in this game that make no sense. From the way you reload to some of the weapons you can get being extremely overpowered. While I still think that Resistance 2 and 3 are fun, this one is just the part of the trilogy that falls flat. I kind of want to see this game come back in some capacity because I think Resistance as a franchise has potential, but this one specifically can be left in the past. Number 5. Gauntlet Dark Legacy. Here we have a game that's given me so many great memories. I mean, going through this with my friends, beating up all sorts of goblins, pressing buttons, picking up chicken to refill my health. Those moments really stick in my mind as being so fun, so fantastic, but viewing this through the lens of modern design, you can't help but notice that there's just a very bad flaw in this game, which is that everything seems sort of rushed. Characters don't have a lot of animations. The magic is all basically the exact same. Some items don't do anything, and there's also the issue that there are a ton of glitches. In an average playthrough, you're gonna see bosses falling through the floor, people that are just repeatedly appearing after you kill them, and sometimes levels that simply cannot be beaten. It's not that this game is a dumpster fire, it's just one of those things that you need to keep playing it with the friends you love the most, because playing it by yourself, it's hard not to only notice the glaring problems. Number 4. Metroid Other M. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to tell me that this game is garbage and has always been known to be garbage, but when it first released, it was considered quite cutting edge because this was specifically made as a Metroid for the Nintendo Wii. Now, this was cool because it tried to implement a lot of different stuff, like motion controls, trying to tinker with the idea of 2D and 3D combat. I liked it because it was different. It's hard not to see that while it was at least semi-good when it first came out, though, it's just a freaking mess now. I mean, seriously, why is Samus acting so dumb in this? She refuses to use some of her best abilities just because other characters tell her not to do it. Some of the levels also don't make any sense. I mean, there are literal parts where you are just supposed to go in the wrong direction to pick up a crappy item in order to advance the story. This game kills me even more now because I've gone back and beaten several of the Metroids I'd originally missed. If you play even a game like Metroid Fusion and then Other M back to back, you can't help but see that this is something that was made simply to make some extra cash. Number 3. Clock Tower. When I was 12 years old, a kid that was my neighbor came over one day and told me about a game that was so scary he literally could not sleep for days. Some sort of hide-and-seek simulator where a horrible person with giant scissors is constantly hunting you, and the only way to stop him is to keep a step ahead and always find a new spot to tuck yourself. Now, that sounded absolutely mind-blowing, but when I finally got my hands on Clock Tower, it was a little bit different than what I expected. In my mind, I pictured something a little bit closer to Resident Evil 2, and while these are similar graphically, it's hard not to notice the fact that the gameplay is very, very different. In this case, what you're essentially getting is a point-and-click adventure, and it's so freaking limited nowadays. It's really hard to be terrified of somebody even when they are a hideous freak if you know that the only way to stop them is to click on a couple different options. Oh yeah, you managed to click this vase and smash him in the head, and now you get to run away. It's a game that is held back by the limited hardware of the time, and it just kind of drives me nuts because I think that Clock Tower is still able to be frightening, but it can never be truly scary the way it once was. Number 2. Myst. This might make you laugh, but at one point this was considered to be the most realistic graphics ever. Like, seriously, across every console, every computer, everything in the world, this was the sharpest visuals ever created. If you read reviews of this, it talked about the fact that Myst is something that strands you on an island, filling you with a sense of isolation as you clicked your way through this adventure, figuring out where to go and what to do. The problem is, it doesn't really seem like that anymore. When you play it now, it's pretty obvious that this is just a series of pre-rendered backgrounds with a couple areas that you can scroll through. I mean, It's really kind of strange because it almost feels like you're clicking through a slideshow of different pictures you're seeing on some sort of fan website. When I was actually playing through this the first time, I didn't really like it on computer, so I figured it might be a little bit better on the DS. So I ended up finding a copy on the Nintendo DS, and even playing it like this, it's hard not to just say, why am I even bothering? While this may at one point have been an epic grand time that everybody was talking about, today it's not even worth mentioning. Number 1. GoldenEye 007. It really hurts my heart deep down to put this anywhere on the list because this is actually my favorite Nintendo 64 game. I've put thousands of hours into this, trying to conquer every single mission on the highest difficulty, learning every secret of every single map, and just blasting my friends in the head over and over again. But it's hard to deny the fact that it's just not the same. This game is something that was designed for a different time in general. I mean, the fact that this is a first-person shooter that uses one joystick and basically nothing else, it really makes it a raw time. It just does not work, and the fact that it has such a short draw distance, such weird character models, so much about this game is something that feels like a time capsule. It's something that lets us take a detailed look to the ancient past, seeing the best of that time period. But now, it's something that kind of looks, well, really, really weird. That's why I am awarding this my favorite game for the Nintendo 64, but unfortunately, a good game that aged very badly. Did your favorite game not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Man, I am so glad I finally have an NES Classic Edition again. When I first got that, way back in the day when it first came out, Nintendo sent me one, and I ended up giving mine away to my friend's son. So the fact that they finally restocked it makes me so freaking happy. So Nintendo, keep doing that. Stop letting the scalpers win. I was willing to buy this product. Just keep the stuff people want in stores, alright? Good. Alright, I'm gonna go play some more NES. Okay, that's jammed. You know what? I'm going to stop pretending to play it. I actually have it hooked up in the other room. What am I doing? Screw this. Oh, hey. I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad, and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.